How you doing, everybody? My name is JP Biambi, and I'm reporting to you live from Merchant Advisory Services. You're probably watching this from our LinkedIn, YouTube, or possibly even our X. If you are, take a second, subscribe, or follow us. Drop us a comment, give us a like, and then, if you want, you can hit the bell to be notified when we upload new media, drop new clips. Anyway, today, it's July 28th. 2025. I want to come and I want to give you some of my reactions to the news. I was told by some peers that they want to hear my reactions. They told me, JP, we want to hear your reactions. Just give us your reactions to some of the headlines you see in the news. So I've been thinking about that for a while. I haven't had any reactions to anything that I see in the news because I kind of stay away from the news. Kind of think the legacy media is not real news, but hey, it is what it is. So I wanted to give my reactions today because I've seen some things in the news that I wanted to react to. So here we are. Thanks for tuning in. Anyway, first thing I did, and let me share my screen with you. And before I do that, let me just say that under Section 107, the Copyright Act of 1706, allowances are made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. So there's that before I share my screen. But I want to do that with you guys so that way I could show you what I was talking about. Basically, what I did today was went and I Googled news. See what I got. This was about 2 hours ago. Some news from the BBC, The Guardian, CNN, New York Times. Tampa hits 100 degrees for the first time. Okay, that's cool. If I click through to Google News, we could see what's news there. But this is what happens when you Google the word news in Google. They give you their website first, obviously. But hey, let's look at some of that. Fine. Now that's kind of boring, right? Because who's interested in seeing 10 blue links? Not me. So I don't know. I've been using this thing, and I don't get paid by them. We're not sponsored by them at all. But I used this thing for the first time today called Ground News because I wanted to see just blatantly what were the topics in the headlines. What are some of the headlines right now without me having to get marketed to? I want unfiltered news right now and just see what's the most popular news. So here's what it is. If you want, I can refresh it for you, but here's what it is. Anyway, one of the things I want to point out is Merchant Advisory Services, our main focus is payments, merchant services, payments processing, as you know. So one of the things I did is I put the word payments into Ground News. And look what I got. Look at some of these. First one that pulls up is winter fuel payments to extend pensioners on our incomes of $35,000 or less. Okay, that's not really to do with our industry, but the next one up does. And that's the one that stuck out to me. And I want to react to that one. It says Treasury opens Venmo payments for voluntary donations to reduce the U.S.'s $36 trillion national debt. Anyway, no need to waste time. I have it open right here. Here's the article. And shout out to Ground News. They said I have read 1 out of my 5 free daily articles. So that's what prompted me to do this as well. I said, well, hey, if I used 1 of the 5 free daily articles, I might as well make a video out of it because I don't want it to go to waste. So there's that. Since I'm using up 1 of my free articles, we're making a video about it under the Fair Use Act. Got that? Anyway, let me go through the article with you and then I'm going to react. Here it says, Treasury opens Venmo payments for voluntary donations to reduce the U.S.'s $36 trillion national debt. In early 2025, the U.S. Treasury introduced Venmo as a new option for individuals to make voluntary contributions towards lowering the national debt. This update builds on a long-standing program dating back to 1961 that allows citizens to donate funds to reduce the federal debt. The Treasury averages about $120,000 monthly in donations since 2020, with over 2.7 million collected last year and nearly 174,000 contributed in April 2025 alone. According to Treasury data, Americans have donated about 67.3 million since 1996, which is enough to cover roughly 20 minutes of the nation's debt. Okay? 67.3 million donated since 1996 only covers 20 minutes of the nation's debt. just to give you an idea of how much of a drop in the bucket that is. Adding Venmo and other digital options reflects the efforts to modernize payments and engage younger Americans amid the national debt surpassing $37 trillion. Okay, so there's the bullet points, I guess, on this article, and they're talking about the bias comparison and all these other things. But, I just want to react to some of the, headlines that you're going to see below here. Michigan Live reports the government is now letting you pay down America's massive debt with just your phone. That's from Michigan Live. All right. WLTR report. Treasury Department now accepts Venmo, PayPal contributions to pay down a national debt. They're listing that as far right. And it was reposted by the Daily Truth Report. All right. So these are just some of the top headlines that I'm going to react to. Okay. Another headline from 100% Fed Up is the Treasury Department now accepts Venmo, PayPal contributions to pay down national debt. Anyway, that's far right. Same article almost. All right. Here's Lean Left. Vice. I think we've all heard of that one. We've all heard of Vice, right? Here's the headline from Vice. You can now help pay off the national debt on Venmo. Seriously. That's the article. That's the title. Now we're going to react to this one because, I think this is hilarious. You could raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans instead of cutting their taxes while celebrating the signing of a new bill that adds several trillions to our already enormous 36 trillion debt. So basically they're talking about how they could raise taxes on the wealthiest. Instead, they cut taxes while celebrating a new bill that adds several trillions to the already 36 trillion debt, right? Alternatively, you can set up a small Venmo account that allows average citizens to contribute money to reduce the national debt, much like a GoFundMe. Now, I think they're just poking fun right now, having fun. This is sort of, poking fun at the bear, really. You know what I mean? This is very satirical humor. Anyway, the next line, if you can imagine it, this is from Vice, is the United States is a deeply unserious nation. Let me read that again to you. This is from Vice News here, all right? The United States is a deeply unserious nation. As such, under President Donald Trump, pay.gov has now, and then I could continue reading it, but we're not even going to. I just want you to point out that Vice is calling the United States a deeply unserious nation. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not, but comment below. Let us know what you think. I'll tell you right now, if the United States is setting up a Venmo account to help collect donations from average citizens to pay down a national debt, I really can't take them seriously either. Okay? I really can't take the United States seriously, and I really just can't even fathom that that's something that somebody over there would spend time doing. The fact that somebody in the government actually spent the time to actually set up a Venmo account to think that someone is going to contribute donations that way, I guess makes sense. But I think they should be focusing on much bigger agendas, much bigger initiatives. Yeah, Venmo, PayPal, that might be one way for people to donate to the government, but don't you think you should solve the problem with a bigger solution instead of trying to what are you doing? You shovel in the driveway with a spoon here when you open up a Venmo account to collect donations to try to pay down 37 trillion. Average Americans don't have 37 trillion to donate. How many billionaires are using Venmo to send donations? Anyway, United States, get serious, please. Live Mint, their headline is the U.S. is accepting gifts via Venmo, PayPal to reduce 36.7 trillion debt. Leaves Americans fuming at the audacity. Yeah, I wouldn't say he leaves them fuming. It has them fuming at the audacity. And me, I'm just laughing at it because, here we are. I'm reacting to this because I just think this is humorous. Anyway, Fox Business's headline reads, want to help with America's 36 trillion debt? The Treasury Department now takes PayPal and Venmo donations. Man, this is like a press run for the government, letting you know, hey, here's our Venmo. Send us some money. This is like the stripper at the club tattooing her Cash App on her body so that you see it when she's stripping. That's what this is like. the United States has really gotten to an all-time low with this. Anyway, more articles can go, but this Fox Business one says, hey, and this is leaning right. Americans, if they're so inclined, can now donate to pay down the national debt via Venmo and PayPal. The U.S. Treasury Department's little-known program has been around for decades, and Americans have donated $67.3 million in the last 29 years, which has done little to bring down the current $36.7 trillion in debt. All right, so, you know, they're talking about a post on X from NPR's Jack Corbett showing a screenshot that went viral. Now, man, I can tell you, this is a hilarious article. And I'll tell you, the United States, you have reached a new low. If this is what it has come to, and you are now using Venmo and PayPal to collect donations from average citizens, this is an all-time low. I can't take you seriously anymore, and I don't know what American can. You know, if you're going to start asking me to pay my taxes via Venmo or PayPal, then that's going to be it. You know, I'm done, you know, because I'm not doing that. You need to find a better way. Asking for donations via PayPal and Venmo to pay down the national debt, that's ludicrous. That's just a great way to infuriate your citizens. You want to get citizens upset and infuriate them? Do that. Tell them, hey, you can donate some money after we went and squandered all the money that you gave us already that we collected in taxes to pay down the debt. Or maybe we borrowed too much that no matter what we ask you for, it's never going to be enough to pay down what we did. This is akin to like if you had children, your children borrowing more money from you than you have that you can afford to pay and service on the debt. This is like your student or your child taking out so much debt that you can't afford to pay off the debt, nor can you afford to pay off the loan on the debt that your child has taken out. Imagine your child who just grabs all your credit cards, runs up all the debt, so now you can't even afford to pay off all the credit cards, and now you can't even afford to pay off all the minimum balances on all the credit cards that they ran up. Imagine that scenario. Imagine that scenario. I don't have debt. I've paid off all my debt. I'm debt free. Besides what I accumulate during the month that gets paid off at the end of the month, that's the only debt I accumulate. However, imagine you're a parent. Your child grabs all your credit cards and runs out and runs up all the debt within a month or two. And then in that second month, you've maxed out all your cards. You cannot pay all that off, maybe because it's too much. And then the amount that is due at the end of each month as a minimum, maybe you can't afford that collectively in the total amount. That is kind of the scenario the United States is in. They cannot even afford to pay off the amount that they owe to service the debt, nonetheless pay off the debt. So they're going into a black hole where they're never going to be able to even pay this off, and it's going to keep spiraling out of control. I guess they're what is called is past the point of no return. And if you ask me, once I realize that you're past the point of no return, I'm jumping ship. Especially if I'm not the captain. If I have the option to jump ship, I will. If I know that your business is going down, I'm going to cash out and get my options out of there and go. Sell my share of the business, cash out my stocks, do whatever. But I'm jumping ship if I know that you're going down and you're the mathematical equation that you're using to run your business is running you in the negative more and more every day, which is what the United States government is doing with their strategy of just unlimited printing of money. If that's your strategy, then voila. I believe this is now proven. You've passed the tipping point, and now you're just thinking that you're going to chip away at it with something really silly, like adding a Venmo account to have people donate. And then you're making big stink about it, putting it out in the news like it's supposed to help. What you should do is have a publicity campaign saying, hey, you're circulating that particular Venmo address to billionaires and soliciting them, asking them for them to make significant contributions to knock down the debt. So let's just say you might ask Jeff Bezos to throw down $100 billion and say, hey, here, we just knocked down the debt that much because he can afford to do that, which is way more than the $67.3 million that the Americans have donated since 1996. How about you do that? And maybe that could be like, some tax write-off for him. Maybe that's a way he can contribute to his, paying his share of fair taxes. is paying down the national debt. Why don't you ask billionaires to pay their share of taxes by paying down the national debt instead of asking everyday citizens to do that? How about that? Maybe the U.S. government should consider that. Ask billionaires to donate to the national debt, and then let everyday people keep their money. And maybe you should circulate that Venmo or that PayPal address to the billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and all the rest of them on that list, and have them donate some money to pay down the national debt. And then maybe then you'll get to reducing that significantly. Because if you take, a majority of the wealth from all the people in the population, it's not going to match up to the top 1%. So you do the math, you tell me what makes sense to you. Anyway, in closing, I hope this has been fun for you because it's been amusing for me. Just wanted to do that for you, share my reactions to what I've seen in the news, and give you my opinion on that. Just want to let you know that the views expressed in this video do not necessarily represent the opinions of Merchant Advisory Services, and they are solely those of me, the speaker, JP Biambi. Got that? So I just want to make sure I put that disclaimer out there for you guys. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Looking forward to see you on the next one. Don't forget, you can follow us on X. You could follow us on LinkedIn. Or if you're watching this on our YouTube, you can give us a like if you enjoyed this. Or drop a comment just to let us know you was here. And if you want more, subscribe. And then you can hit the bell so we can let you know when we upload new clips. Got that? Good. Hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Get a free Clover Compact. That's right, free. A $250 value. Get yours when you get approved with Merchant Advisory Services. Don't wait. Streamline your payments, boost your efficiency, and save. Get yours now. A free Clover Compact. Yes, free.